Hello, welcome to Thor Talk, the show all about Marvel's resident god of thunder. On this episode of Thor Talk, we look at the Mighty Thor at the Gates of Valhalla, number 1, where Thor's granddaughters travel through time and Malekith continues the War of Realms on Thor Talk.
I am Thor the Thunderer, son of Odin, prince of Asgard, and this world is under my protection.
The Mighty Thor at the Gates of Valhalla, number 1, was written by Jason Aaron and was published in May of 2018. The story begins in the far future, where Thor is king. Thor's granddaughters have put sleeping berries in his mead so that they can use the time diamonds of Asgard to travel to meet Jane Foster. They tell the diamonds to take them to the golden age of Thor, but rather than take them to Jane, the diamonds take them to Viking times, where trolls have taken over a village. Thor's granddaughters dispatch the trolls, freeing the village, and tell the diamonds to take them to Thor. They find themselves in Asgard, as a young Thor attempts to lift Mjolnir, but is unsuccessful, as he's not yet worthy. The granddaughters of Thor try again with the diamonds, this time asking to take them to the future Thor. Rather than finding Jane, they find Dargo Kator of the 26th century. Next, they find themselves being chased by the Avengers of prehistoric times. Eventually, they give up and ask the diamonds to take them home, only to find that they were taken much too far in the future, as King Thor battles Loki, who is wielding Gor's necrosword. They leave quickly before they endanger the timeline, as they finally find themselves in modern-day New York. But they don't have to go far to look for Jane, as she face-plants into the back of one of them. The granddaughters of Thor introduce themselves, and they discuss the work that Jane has done and what she will yet do. But before they leave, they let Jane fly with them as a favor. In their own time, they discuss the horrors that Jane will face once the war comes to her doorstep, as we go to modern-day Svartalheim, where King Malekith looks over his subjects. The Dark Elves are starving and miserable, but Malekith has come to give his thanks to a very specific family of elves. He gleefully tells the Fangrot family that their son was gruesomely killed in Nidavellir, but not by dwarves. Their son actually butchered so many dwarves that he was overcome with warrior's madness, and he started to kill his fellow Dark Elves in a blind rage, so he had to be put down. Malekith was immensely pleased by this, and asks the Fangrot family what he can do for them in honor of their son. They ask for food, but Malekith reminds them that all food must be rationed for the War of Realms. However, Malekith then turns his eyes upon the Blisterlick family. Their son died of dysentery in Vanaheim, and did not kill a single god before he died. Malekith tells the Fangrots to eat the Blisterlicks with the blessings of their king. The Fangrots oblige. Malekith then begins to tour the realms where his war rages. He slaughters dwarves in Nidavellir, silences a mountain giant infant in Jotunheim, fights alongside the sons of Muspelheim in Niflheim, kills gods alongside Dario Agr in Vanaheim, terrorizes light elves in Alfheim, informs the angels of the destruction of Asgard in heaven, watches with a grin as Jane dies surrounded by the people of Asgard, and finally prepares to bring the War of Realms to Midgard. The war is coming to Earth, and only one god can stop it. Well, that was something. This issue seems to only exist to set up future storylines, and those storylines have already been set up, so it really didn't need to exist. It set up seeing the time when Thor first lifts Mjolnir, but that's already been set up since the beginning of Jason Aaron's run. It set up Thor battling Loki in the future, but that was already set up in Thor number 700. It set up the Avengers battling the final host of Celestials, but that's been set up in Marvel Legacy. It set up the War of Realms coming to Earth, but we kind of already assumed that would happen at some point because it is the War of the Realms, and Midgard being left out wouldn't make much sense. The one thing that this issue didn't seem to set up is the one thing that it actually needed to set up: Thor's return. We didn't see him forging his new hammers. We didn't see him get his new arm. We didn't see him do anything. His granddaughters didn't even talk about the work he's about to do. It's especially strange because he's the only person on the cover. Unless you want to count the statue. Oh well, at least Thor will finally return in June. Also, please do the world a favor and buy that issue when it comes out. Even if you watched my episode on it, it's still important to support Thor after he's been neglected for so many years. Well, that's all for this episode of Thor Talk. If you want to keep up with Thor Talk and all Thor-related news, follow Thor Talk on Instagram @Thor Talk. You can also keep up with and support Thor Talk by simply subscribing. Once again, I'd like to formally state that all art and videos owned by its respected companies, and I own none of it. With that said, see you next time on Thor Talk, where...
You'll be holding